Hey everyone, it's me, Jeremy, and today I'm going to be doing a movie review once. I'm so stoked to be doing this. I'm going to be taking over for Austin because after doing his Ed and Eddy review and missing the January release date and having to release it sometime in February, Austin kind of needs some time to sort of relax, get mellow, get some R&R in, and you know, do Austin things before he decides, I don't know, he's going to review, let's say, SWAT Cats or something, or Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, or, I don't know, Gone with the Wind, or Citizen Kane, or, I don't know, whatever Austin's got sitting on that shelf right there that is filled with stuff and we got to store in some other places. I think I had to store in my bathroom at one point, and then it's in my truck. Yeah, I live in my truck. Not really, actually. I just store a lot of stuff in my truck, and then I put it into the garage that Austin has, and then I lock that thing up, and then I store all that stuff, and Austin occasionally has to dig through all that stuff to find what he needs to review, and anyway, you don't want to know anything about what goes on in there. Anyway, while Austin busy is taking some time to get some R&R in and try to relax, I'm going to be doing a movie review. So today, I'm going to be doing The Big Lebowski, directed by Joe Cohen, written and produced by his brother Ethan, and starring Jeff Bridges and John Goodman. So without further ado, let's dive right in and go for a swim, ladies! So the story of The Big Lebowski goes a little like this, so sit back and watch as I explain it to you. The year is 1991. Nintendo has just unleashed the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, with games like Intelligent Systems' port of SimCity, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy II in the US. Nobody knows why, but we wouldn't get the actual Final Fantasy II, or 3 for that matter, until a lot later. F-Zero, Super Mario World, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and Super Castlevania 4 being big titles for Nintendo's second video game console. Sonic the Hedgehog is born, in addition to Sega having the bodacious Streets of Rage, and most triumphant Road Rash from back when EA was most non-heinous. Duke Nukem is created in his first game, Street Fighter II got butts out of the house and into the arcades. Battletoads drove us insane with its addictive gameplay and brutal difficulty. Lemmings came out and reinforced the Disney myth that the creatures in question tend to commit suicide in giant amounts. It was a pretty fun game though. Sunset Riders proved Konami at one point made games and were pretty gnarly. Fatal Fury, King of the Fighters, set the stage for one of the greatest fighting game series of all time. Metroid 2, Return of Samus, hit the Game Boy, which was a best-selling system the second year in a row. LucasArts continued their adventure game dominance with Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, and Delphian Software releases Another World for the Commodore Amiga. Other versions of the time were called Out of This World, which instead of utilizing sprites like most games of the time, used polygons, which at the time was innovative and impressive. Terminator 2 Judgment Day became the highest grossing movie of the year. Beauty and the Beast became the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, losing to Silence of the Lambs, which became the third and only other film to win the 5 major Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Screenplay, and so far the only horror film to win Best Picture. It also marked the beginning of Nickelodeon we know today, with Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy Show airing that year, along with shows on other networks like Darkwing Duck and Eon Flux, while also saying goodbye to shows like Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears, Tailspin, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, The Real Ghostbusters, Captain and the Game Master, Muppet Babies, and the Beetlejuice cartoon.
That's not important right now.
But during the backdrop of all of this stuff going on, we focus on bowler and common slacker Jeffrey Lebowski, or as he calls himself, the Dude. The Dude is attacked one night by 2 enforcers hired by a porn kingpin named Jackie Treehorn, after they mistake him for a different Jeffrey Lebowski, whose wife, much like my completely bogus former friend Callisto Cal, owes him some serious cheddar. One soil rug letter, and the dude decides to go confront the Lebowski they were looking for, only to be shown the door, and only getting the attention of the dude when his trophy wife, Bunny, is allegedly kidnapped. Shenanigans ensue, with the dude's best friend, Walter Sobchak, ruining the ransom drop-off, and from there is where the mystery continues, often with hilarious results. Yeah, it's pretty much a case of mistaken identity, and it's groovy, feeling more like a comedic version of something written by Raymond Chandler, kind of like this one play I was writing with this one guy, with the intention of starring in myself as this man who gets chased by the mafia, an assassin hired by a corrupt politician, and many other whacked out characters, which sadly never materialized due to my writing partner being arrested for ripping a tag off of 36 mattresses. But enough about that, we've got a production story to tell. When developing The Big Lebowski, Ethan and Joel Coen took note of producer and political activist Jeff Dowd, who they met while finding someone to distribute Blood Simple, their first feature film, into theaters. Dowd had been part of the Seattle Seven, which were the most famous members of the Seattle Liberation Front, which was an anti-Vietnam War movement, loved a good white Russian here and there, and was even called the Dude at certain points, and thus Jeffrey the Dude Lebowski was born. Other influences include Peter X-Lin, or X-Line I probably should say, a Vietnam vet who supposedly lived in an apartment crappier than a Ford Pinto, and was proud that he had a rug that made it all work, and would later go on to become a faculty member at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. Another thing about X-Line was that he knew Barry Sonnenfeld from New York University, who introduced the Coens to the former while they were raising money for Blood Simple, after which X-Line became friends with the brothers and in 1989 told them the tales of his life.
I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason.
Including some about his actor and writer friend, Louis Abernathy, who was an inspiration for Walter, a fellow vet who later became a PI and helped the man track down a high schooler who stole his car. This would be the inspiration for the scene where the dude's car was impounded by the LAPD, and Abernathy, much like the dude and Walter, found someone's homework in the passenger seat. X-Line was also part of an amateur softball team, but because this line was taken,
you're a lousy fucking softball player, Jack!
bowling was chosen instead, because it's the type of sport where you can engage in conversation while you have a drink, smoke a cigarette, at the time anyway, have some nachos, write an essay on why farts are sexy, you know, normal people stuff. Another inspiration for Walter came into play when during the production of Bart and Fig, which was released the same year The Big Lebowski takes place, the Coens met John Milius, a writer for the first two Dirty Harry films, Jeremiah Johnson and Apocalypse Now, and director of Dillinger, The Wind and the Lion, Conan the Barbarian, and Red Dawn in Los Angeles, and took note of his love for guns in the military, as well as introduced the bros to Jim Ganzer, another source for the making the dude reality. Ganzer, much like Jeff Dowd, was also known as the Dude, and Ganzer's gang was made up of atypical Malibu surfers, and was the inspiration for Milius' film The Big Wednesday. Meanwhile, before David Olsen Johnson Huddleston was cast as Big Jeffrey Lebowski, the Coens wanted Marlon Brando for the role, as he was their first choice. But that didn't happen, which, if that did, much like if Austin wore a fedora or a pork pie hat, it still would have fit. Other choices included Robert Duvall, who thought the script was pee-pee and poo-poo, Anthony Hopkins, who wasn't big on playing American, probably after playing 2 US presidents previously, Gene Hackman, who wanted a vacation from acting, Jack Nicholson, who only wanted to play Moses at the time, and honestly would have been more fitting for playing the dude. Tommy Lee Jones, who was deemed too young, Carol O'Connor, Larry Hagman, Hoyt Axton, he probably thought there was a gremlin on set during the dream sequence, so he said no, Ned Beatty, Michael Caine, Bruce Dern, James Coburn, Charles Durning, Jackie Cooper, Fred Ward, Richard Mulligan, Rod Steiger, Peter Boyle, Lloyd Bridges. Krabs tripped him on his way to the audition.
Who put that crab there?
Crab? I didn't see any crab.
Don't tell me. There were 2 crabs. They work in pairs.
Paul Dooley, Pat Hingle, Jonathan Winters, too busy playing Spot the Car.
Here they come.
There's a car, 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 there's a car.
Novelist Norman Mailer, George C. Scott, Jerry Falwell, yes, that Jerry Falwell, Gore Vidal, which between Bob Roberts and Gattaca really showed how influential Vidal was as an intellectual and writer, Andy Griffith, conservative writer and political commentator William F. Buckley, go watch Aladdin to understand who that was, and Ernest Borgnine. Other people that were almost cast but didn't end up happening include the lovely Charlize Theron as Bunny, and David Cross auditioned for the role of Brad, which would have still fit him like a pair of black rim aviators on me. According to Julianne Moore, the character of Maud was inspired by artist Carolee Schneemann, who, much like Austin's first wife Helen, worked naked from a swing, and by Yoko Ono, which explains the dissolution of the dude's bowling team following Donnie's fatal heart attack. While Jesus Quintana, an opponent of the dude's bowling team, was based off of John Turturro's performance in a play that the Coens brothers saw in 1988 called Mi Puta Vida, where he played a character that could be best compared to that of "Step away from the child, you are under arrest." So Joe Coen was like, let's make him a pederast and run with it. He's perfect. As for the plot structure, like I mentioned, Raymond Chandler, detective vision extraordinaire and creator of Philip Marlowe, was definitely one of the biggest influences on the film, with Ethan Coen stating, "We wanted something that would generate a certain narrative feeling, like a modern Raymond Chandler story, and that's why it had to be set in Los Angeles. We wanted to have a narrative flow, a story that moves like a Chandler book through different parts of town and different social classes." The stranger's narration also came from Chandler, with Joel Coen claiming he is a little bit of an audience substitute. In the movie adaptation of Chandler, it's the main character that speaks off screen, but we didn't want to reproduce that, though it obviously echoes. It's as if someone was commenting on the plot from an all-seeing point of view, and at the same time rediscovering the old earthiness of Mark Twain. One last thing to note here was that according to Joel Coen, bowling culture was a vital part of the film, which to him represented the end of the 50s and the beginning of the 60s, stating that suited the retro side of the movie, slightly anachronistic, which sent us back to a not so far away era, but one that was well and truly gone nevertheless. And so, we move to the next segment. The script for The Big Lebowski was written just around the same time as Barton Fink, during which John Goodman was doing Roseanne and Jeff Bridges was filming Walter Hill's movie Wild Bill, meaning they were indisposed at the moment. So the Coens decided to make Fargo instead. According to Ethan, much of the film was conceived on the basis of the relationship between the dude and Walter, which sprang from Barton Fink and Charlie Meadows' dynamic in Barton Fink. Both Ethan and Joel also sought to have the film be set in contemporary Los Angeles because of the dudes who inspired the story as they all lived there. And when Peter Exline told his tale about the homework in the baggie, the boys thought it had that Raymond Chandler feel, and like I mentioned, implemented it into the script. And to add to the Raymond Chandler love, Joel has said that Robert Altman's excellent film, The Long Goodbye, was the key influence on The Big Lebowski, as he deemed it as being informed by Chandler himself around each edge. When it came time for the Coens to write the screenplay, they only came up with around 40 pages, letting it marinate until it was time to finish it, which really isn't anything new and is a very common tradition, usually reaching a fork in the road, often moving on to another project before coming back to what they were originally working on, and by that point, they've already cooked up ideas for future films, which Austin should consider doing with his reviews so that they're ready for filming each month, maybe even next week if possible. When the Coens felt the scene was crowded with too much exposition to the point of boredom, they would put into action an effete art world hanger-on, who in this case was Knox Harrington, who came in late into the script writing process. And originally the dude was going to drive around in a Chrysler LeBaron because Jeff Dowd owned one at one point. But because Goodman was a hefty boy back then, the Coens opted to instead incorporate Ford Torino into the film, of which its sexy 1972 body style gave it the name Gran Torino, which isn't just an excellent film starring Clint Eastwood, nor is it just the name of All Might's mentor. And with that, we enter the next segment. And now for the pre-production mumbo jumbo, because Polygram Filmed Entertainment, who 2 years prior produced Fargo for the Coens, and Working Title Films, which had done the same along with the Coens' other films like Barton Fink, The Hudsucker Proxy, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, The Man Who Wasn't There, Burn After Reading, A Serious Man, and Hail Caesar. The first two had Polygram's involvement, the rest were done by Working Title alone. Back to Big Lebowski with a budget of $15 million. Joel once recalled during the casting that he and Ethan usually wrote a lot of parts for people they knew and people they worked with, sometimes not knowing who was going to play who, with John Goodman's and Steve Buscemi's character roles being written with the actors in mind, and the role of the dude, they had no idea who was going to play him. They considered casting Mel Gibson as the dude, but he laughed them off, and when Jeff Bridges was offered the role, he was reluctant to do so, as he feared he would set a bad example for his daughters. But one of his daughters, Jessica, told him to take a chance on it after a meeting. To prepare for his role, Bridges met with Jeff Dowd, but primarily took note of how he was during the 60s and 70s, and even said, "I lived in a place like that and did drugs, although I think I was a little more creative than the dude." He also dug through his closet to find some things that the dude would most definitely wear, alongside the wardrobe person for the film, and because they were Bridges', he was able to take most of them home, not to mention adopt the same physicality as Dowd, such as the slouching and his ample belly, almost as ample as this girl's breasts.
Blonde and busty gets me lusty.
Meanwhile, Goodman was thinking of a sort of beard for Walter, only for the Coen brothers to insist on the gladiator look, or as they called it, the chin strap. Not to mention realizing that it would go very well with the flat top hairstyle he had going on. As for the look of the movie, the Coens opted to avoid the presence of lava lamps, Dayglow posters, and music by the Grateful Dead, and instead focus on the bowling theme so that it was bright and colorful throughout, such as the star motif that was abundant throughout the film, which was conducted by production designer Rick Heinrich's design for the bowling alley. Rick Heinrich, of course, also worked on Pee-wee's Big Adventure and worked on the Coens on Fargo. Joel Coen has said that he pretty much thought the whole lay freeform stars on top and place a similar freeform star on the interior thing himself, and was something that carried over into the dream sequences, which, as Heinrich remembered, used many star patterns and lines that radiated to a point. With the first dream sequence in which the dude gets knocked out, various stars are seen as they come together to light up the nightscape of LA, while the second one was an astral environment with stars in the backdrop. And I remember seeing something similar when one time me and my brother-in-law Brandon smoked this joint after eating some Dunkin' Donuts. Moving to Jackie Treehorn's Malibu beach house, Heinrich took note of the late 50s and early 60s bachelor pad furniture, which feels like something that Quagmire would have sitting around, and the Coen bros told Heinrich to have Treehorn's beach party to have it to be Inca themed, which they said was very Hollywood-esque. A lot of young guys carrying drinks and appetizers and looking at any point to rip out someone's heart out of their chest and be set ablaze. Moving from that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom reference, director of cinematography Roger Deakins, credits include 1984, Sid and Nancy, Air America, Barton Fink, Passion Fish, Thunderheart, The Secret Garden, The Hudsucker Proxy, The Shawshank Redemption, Dead Man Walking, Fargo, Kundun, The Hurricane, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, A Beautiful Mind, The Man Who Wasn't There, House of Sand and Fog, Intolerable Cruelty, The Village, Jarhead, No Country for Old Men, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, Doubt, Revolutionary Road, A Serious Man, the 2010 version of True Grit, Rango, Skyfall, Prisoners, Sicario, Hail Caesar, Blade Runner 2049, and 1917, talk with the Coens about the look of the film, with the two wanting some parts to have this contemporary look, while others were to be almost dreamlike in nature. All choreography was handled by Bill and Jack Landrum. Actor Jack Keller went through a triple 3-hour rehearsal session and chose Modest Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition out of 3 to 4 options the Coens suggested, and at each rehearsal, Keller went through each phase of the piece. And with that, we enter the final segment. And now we come to the shooting of the film, which is done over the time frame of 11 weeks and was done on location in the City of Angels, including the now defunct Hollywood Star Lanes, which for 3 weeks was where the dude and his buddies bowled, and in July 1977 was a staging area for the FBI to perform a raid on 2 Scientology locations nearby. Okay. And the dude's Busby Berkeley-inspired dream sequence was done in a converted airplane hangar. Joel Coen has said that he only ever directed Jeff Bridges whenever he asked if the dude rolled some doobies on the way there, and often telling him, "Yeah man, pretty much," and the dude would rub his eyes in order to have them look bloodshot. While Julianne Moore was given the script while doing The Lost World Jurassic Park, and only worked for 2 weeks on The Big Lebowski, which was early and late during the production from January to April 1997, I meant to say. and Sam Elliott was only on set for 2 days and did more takes of his final speech than I did during this voiceover. According to the Jolster, Bridges was unhappy that there wasn't a playback monitor for him to do, forcing the crew to get him one following the second week of production, because you generally are going to have those actors who are very self-conscious. Trust me, Austin is like that. Meanwhile, the scenes in Jackie Treehorn's house were done in the Sheets Goldstein residence, which was also filming location for Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, built in 1963 in the Hollywood Hills, which was designed by John Lautner, who also designed the Chemosphere featured in The Duplicate Man, a 1964 episode of The Outer Limits, and the Brian De Palma thriller Body Double, and the Garcia house, seen in Lethal Weapon 2. Roger Deakins has described the look of the fantasy scenes as having a crisp, monochromatic, and highly lit feel that gives it a greater depth of focus, but said that the dude's apartment was pretty suspect, with a rather nasty light that gives it a grittier feel, with this visual bridge between both styles also being how the night scenes were done. Deakins also tended to use an orange sodium light effect instead of the atypical blue moonlight or blue street lamp look, while the Coens shot a majority of the film with wide-angle lenses in order to, according to Joel, make it easier to hold focus for greater depth, and because it helped ensure the camera movements were more dynamic. And finally, in order to get the POV shot of the bowling ball rolling, the Coen brothers mounted a camera on, as Ethan claims, something like a barbecue spit, and then follows it across the lane, kind of like when my friend Timmy would push his Hot Wheels cars across the bar at his brother's condo. And much like with the toy cars, the Coens had trouble finding relative speeds for the forward motion and the rotating motion. CGI was utilized to conceive the vantage point of the thumb hole in the bowling ball. And with that done, because there's nothing else I can say here, I've got an opinion to state, so let's do this thing! The Big Lebowski is the big kahuna, man, and it's totally rad from head to toe. It's one of the definitive films from the Coen brothers, and one of the best dark comedies out there. Same with another Coen brothers classic, Fargo. To start off, the writing is tubular, with plenty of twists and turns down every corner, and plenty of laughs for every scene in the film. From just the opening scene to the ending monologue, each scene is memorable, entertaining, and overall a feast for the eyes, just as the dream sequences, especially the second dream. The scene at the diner, the scene with the sheriff, amongst many great scenes that you just need to see to believe, because you won't believe your eyes. But the script is only part of the tastiness here, as the acting here is top-notch, ensuring that this masterpiece isn't bogged down by a bunch of jabronis named Tucker, because nobody likes a Tucker. It all starts with Jeff Bridges as the dude, who doesn't so much play a character, but plays a way of life that has manifested itself into a mortal man, and it's easily the coolest character in the room whenever he roams. The dude is essentially this laid-back, mellow slacker who really has two things on his mind: go bowling, smoke some weed, and goes about life without really a care in the world. The dude is also an atypical everyman who gets thrust into a situation over a misunderstanding, and before you can even count to 10, is involved in a plot so thick you can cut it with a knife. often at his own reluctance, as he really just wants to be chill, as do we. Bridges makes the dude a righteous dude, and ensures that the character is likable, relatable, and someone that really, we sort of wish we were in most cases, as we probably need some more dudes in our everyday life, especially in this day and age with our current political climate, in order to remind us to be cool and just go with the flow. Not to mention, Bridges delivers some great lines found in the Book of Dude.
No, I do mind. The dude minds. This will not stand, you know? This aggression will not stand, man.
I'm just gonna go find a cash machine.
Yeah? Well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Then you have John Goodman as Walter Sobchak, who's not exactly the best person to be around, but the movie wouldn't be all that memorable without him, so we kind of need him here. Walter is a Vietnam vet who pretty much causes a lot of things to escalate quickly, whether it be waving a gun when he believes someone stepped over the line, or in one of the funniest scenes, grabbing a man in a wheelchair he believes is faking his paralysis and dropping on the floor.
Put him down, man!
Yeah, I'll put him down, dude. I'll throw baby.
He has a hard time letting go of the war, often using it when he feels he's being attacked, and often claims he's Shomer Shabbos, despite being divorced from his wife for quite some time. So yeah, Walter isn't the ideal person you want as a friend, but in the end, he wouldn't have some of the best lines in the film. And Goodman excels here as Walter, ensuring that when someone exclaims, "Over the line!" that's the moment you stop, reassess, and just mark it 0, because nothing good can come from this. Not to mention having great chemistry with Jeff Bridges as the dude. Other good performances include Steve Buscemi as Donnie Karabastos, a friend of the dude and Walter who at the start has some big wins, but who is not long for this world. Julianne Moore as Maud Lebowski, the Big Lebowski's feminist daughter who helps out the dude in his convoluted mystery and convinces him to have sex with her to give birth to a little Lebowski. Not to mention reminding us of the many creative ways to describe the mythical sausage Austin was talking about last time. David Huddleston is excellent as the titular Big Lebowski, who starts this whole thing and delivers it, the very cranky and disgruntled philanthropist like a champ. The late Philip Seymour Hoffman shines as Brandt, keeping a straight face throughout and having some great comedic timing. Tara Reid makes the most of her screen time on screen as Bunny Lebowski, the Big Lebowski's younger trophy wife, who delivers this classic line.
I'll suck your cock for $1,000.
Yes! Oh, lovely! Oh,
my God.
I'll leave you guys alone. Brand can't watch though, or he has to pay $100.
John Turturro is pretty memorable as the rival bowler and creeper Jesus Quintana, who delivers that line that remains true to this very day.
Nobody fucks with the Jesus.
And Sam Elliott is great as a stranger, who opens and closes the story quite magnificently. It reminds me that more movies could really benefit from Sam Elliott doing some narration. Ben Gazzara also makes his presence clear as Jackie Treehorn, the king of porn who also sets off the events, as does David Thewlis as Knox Harrington, an acquaintance of Maud's. Peter Stormare shines as one of the nihilists, Uli Kunkel, aka Carl Hungus, alongside Torsten Vogt as Franz, and Red Hot Chili Peppers bassist Flea as Kiefer, who sadly does not say this.
what's the matter? Chicken?
And Coen Brothers regular character actor John Polito appears as Defino, a detective who appears outside the dude's apartment. Plus, keep on the hunt for country singer Jimmy Dale Gilmore as Smokey. Chris Tucker was busy in a film that Austin may cover in the future. Dom Herrera, who voiced Ernie Potts in Hey Arnold, as a chauffeur named Tony. Former porn star Asia Carrera as a porn actress named Sherry. Singer Amy Mann, who sang some vocals for one of my favorite Rush songs, as Franz's girlfriend. And Richard Gant, we'll let you look up his filmography. And Christian Clemenson, who's appeared in films like Hannah and Her Sisters, Broadcast News, and Apollo 13, plus plays Socrates Poole and The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. as the cops that the dude talks to when his car gets snatched. The movie also has some really good cinematography, which feels as smooth as butter and really captures the feeling of the film. From the normal scenes of the dude driving around in his car, looking at stuff, and talking to people, to the more out there moments of the fantasy sequences, it's perfection at the highest caliber. And really goes to show just how well made it is beyond just the screenplay. The film also has some pretty decent CGI for the time, never relying on it too heavily, and impressive set design, whether in the normal world or in the dude's dreams, which feel exactly like what goes on in David Lynch's mind, and it really works here. Another thing is that the pacing is top notch, ensuring that there always is something to keep you invested, because at just 1 hour and 57 minutes, it's a little long for a comedy. But it's 117 minutes of great lines, iconic characters, engaging mystery elements, and doesn't stop for anything. And by the time it's over, you're gonna want to watch it again, and we like that. And to wrap it all up, the movie has the music to fit pretty much any moment in the film. There is a film score in the film, which is done by Carter Burwell, who's composed a majority of the Coens' films, as well as films like Psycho 3 and A Goofy Movie. And while it is just 2 tracks, it's not heinous, and definitely stands out. But it's really the licensed songs that stand out, such as the Gypsy Kings' rendition of Hotel California, Bob Dylan's The Man in Me, Kenny Rogers and the First Editions' version of Just Dropped In to See What Condition My Condition Was In, Sons of the Pioneers' Tumbling Tumbleweeds, CCR classics like Run Through the Jungle and Looking Out My Back Door, Santana's Oye Como Va, and the Eagles' classic Peaceful Easy Feeling, and 2 versions of Viva Las Vegas, one by ZZ Top, the other by Sean Colvin, heard in the end credits. It's a soundtrack fit for a king, and a bodacious way to make each scene look even better with music, especially when the dude announces his disdain for the Eagles, which got Peaceful Easy Feeling into the film, even at the cost of Glenn Frey not being a fan of the film, which is a hilarious scene made even better with that song playing, and a nice choice cut for that matter. Needless to say, The Big Lebowski is the bee's knees, and something satisfying from beginning to end. The Big Lebowski had its debut at the Sundance Film Festival on January 18th, 1998, before it was given a more widespread release on March 6th of that year, where it made $5.5 million on its opening weekend, where in the US, it finished with $18 million, just somewhat above its $50 million budget. Its worldwide gross was estimated to be at, $28.7 million, and in total the film made $46.7 million, meaning it didn't exactly set the world on fire. It also didn't impress the critics either. With Peter Howell of Toronto Star writing, it's hard to believe that this is the work of a team that won an Oscar last year for the original screenplay of Fargo. There's a large amount of profanity in this movie, which seems like a weak attempt to paper over the dialogue gaps. In 2011, however, he changed his stance, even calling it his favorite Coen Brothers film. Todd McCarthy in Variety gave praise to the soundtrack, while USA Today claimed that there was enough to keep the audience invested, even if the dude was too passive, and others like Destin Howe of the Washington Post liked the way the film played out, even stating that when it came to the Coens, nobody does it better. Janet Maslin praised Jeff Bridges' performance as the dude, writing, "Mr. Bridges finds a role so right for him that he seems never to have been anywhere else. Watch this performance to see shambling executed with nonchalant grace and seemingly out to lunch character played with fine comic flair." Ian Nathan wrote a 5-star review for Empire, where he even said that in a perfect world, that every film would be done by the Coen brothers. And initially Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, but in 2010 changed it to be 4 stars, and put it as part of his great movies list. Others such as Jonathan Rosenbaum and The Guardian weren't impressed, however, finding the jokes funny, but everything else wasn't that good. Nevertheless, the film got a cult following, noting the eccentric characters, comedic dream sequences, idiosyncratic dialogue, and eclectic soundtrack, with hardened fans of the film calling themselves Achievers, referencing the Lebowski Urban Achievers charity that the Big Lebowski runs. This was noted by Steve Palapoli when, in 2000, he attended a midnight screening at the New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles, and saw people quoting the dialogue, and from there, many things began popping up, such as Lebowski Fest, which was an annual festival filled with bowling, contests dedicated to costumes, trivia, and how hard or far one's travels were, live music, vendor booths, and games, plus some celebrity appearances, including from Jeff Bridges himself. There's a religion based after the film called Dudism, which was established in 2005 and devoted itself to spreading the philosophy and lifestyles of the dude, and has over 220,000 Dudist priests around the world according to its website. And compared to Scientology, it is actually a normal religion and not just a cult pretending to be one. There were 2 species of spiders named after the film and the main character, in addition to an extinct Permian conifer genus based on 270 million year old plant fossils found in Texas, which were discovered between 2006 and 2007 respectively. Entertainment Weekly ranked it at 8 in their list of the funniest movies of the past 25 years. It was number 34 on their top 50 cult films, and number 15 of the cult 25, the essential left field movie hits since '83 list. Not to mention putting the dude at 14 of their 100 greatest characters over the last 20 years poll. Empire Magazine ranked Walter and the dude as the 49th and 7th respectively on their poll for the 100 greatest movie characters, and a group of Los Angeles Times writers and editors voted the film as the 10th best film set in Los Angeles in the last 25 years, with their criteria being that it was one film per director and that it must communicate an inherent truth about the city. The movie has not gotten a sequel, with Jill and Ethan Coen pretty much having no desire to do so, but John Turturro did create a spin-off in 2020 called The Jesus Rolls, which no one I know has seen, but I've heard bad things about it, so I ain't touching that. It's truly one hell of a film. And in 2014, it was selected for preservation by the Library of Congress and the National Film Registry. Not to mention the dude's appearance in advertisement for Stella Artois during Super Bowl 53. No one's forgetting this film. Not by a long shot.
That is the Big Lebowski, ladies and gentlemen. Needless to say, it is radical, man. And I highly recommend that you go check it out. Whether you decide to pick it up here on this 10th anniversary edition DVD here, or you decide to pick it up on Blu-ray, there's one thing that is for sure. The Big Lebowski is the time of your life, and you need to see it. It's got great characters, it's well written, it's funny, it's got great set design, got a great soundtrack. Overall, it's good stuff, man. And it's definitely something that you should check out. Sorry, got a little something in my nose. Anyway, this has been my review of The Big Lebowski. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it entertaining, educational, and it hopefully made you want to check out this film. And it felt nice doing one of these reviews for once, especially filling in for Austin while he recovers from his daily stuff. Don't worry though, Austin will be showing up here more often than not. Me? I may show up here doing a movie review. Maybe I won't. Maybe Ace will come out here and do something. Lord knows he probably needs to get on this business. Anyway, so with that, my name's Jeremy. Here to remind you that just because there is no chimpanzee in your car doesn't mean it doesn't owe you $5. Anyway, sayonara.
That's marvelous.